Hisalis moved through deep space like a single drop of light against a black sea. It was small, quiet, and very far from home. Inside, 5 humans lived and worked together. The captain, the pilot, the engineer, the comm officer, and the scientist. They had been traveling for months beyond the mapped regions, studying dust clouds and old star systems long forgotten by the core worlds. Most days were calm. The hum of the engines was soft and steady. The crew spoke in low voices, sharing coffee, laughter, and small stories from Earth, a place that now felt more like a dream than a memory. Then, one day the signal arrived. It came in slowly, faint and broken, a whisper through static. The comm officer noticed it first. "I've got something," she said, pressing a hand to her headset. "It's human code, but old. Very old." The captain leaned closer. "From where?" She pointed to a small dot on the star map. A cold gray planet orbiting a dying sun. No colony records. No trade routes. Just emptiness. The scientist frowned. That signal shouldn't even exist. This region was never settled. "Could it be a probe?" asked the pilot. The engineer shook his head. No probe would still be transmitting after this long. The bridge fell silent for a moment. The captain looked at the faint blip on the screen, then back at the crew. "Set a course," he said quietly. "Let's see who's calling." It took 3 days to reach the planet. Outside the viewport, the world looked like a frozen scar. Ash-gray plains stretched under a dim red sky. Winds moved slowly across the surface, carrying long trails of dust. There was no life, not even a hint of movement. Yet the signal was still coming. "Steady now, stronger." The comm officer replayed it through the speakers. The voice was faint, distorted by time and distance. Human, but barely. "We are still here," the words echoed through the bridge. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, the pilot whispered, "Could it be a distress call?" The scientist adjusted his readings. "Possibly. But the signal structure is unusual. It's self-correcting, as if someone or something is keeping it alive." The captain nodded slowly. "Prepare the shuttle." The landing was rough. Dust rose in thick clouds, wrapping the small craft in gray until the engines powered down. When the ramp lowered, the air outside was thin but breathable. The crew stepped out together, their boots sinking into soft ash. In the distance, shapes stood against the horizon, tall structures half buried by time. The ruins looked partly human. Metal beams, shattered domes, and what seemed like an old colony tower. But there was something else too. Strange markings carved into the walls, curves and symbols that no one recognized. The scientist walked ahead, scanning the air. "Energy readings here." Faint but consistent. Something is still active. The engineer brushed his gloved hand against one of the walls. "These alloys aren't standard. Half of this wasn't built by us." They followed the signal through the ruins until they reached a large central hall. It was quiet inside, cold and hollow. The air filled with dust and echo. Ancient panels lined the walls, blinking softly with blue light. The comm officer stepped closer. "It's still running. After all this time." At the center of the hall stood a large terminal, shaped like a human console but with alien symbols woven across its surface. As the crew approached, the lights brightened, and one by one, as if recognizing them. The captain hesitated. "Is it responding to us?" The scientist nodded. "It seems so. Maybe it's coded to human presence." Then, from the terminal, the voice came again. Clear this time, no static, no distortion. "We are still here." The words filled the hall. The sound was gentle, almost warm, but there was no source. No hologram. No projection. Just the empty room. For hours, the crew explored. They found rooms filled with old machines. Some human, some alien, fused together in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Data panels flickered when they passed, showing flashes of faces, cities, stars. "This place, it's like a hybrid of 2 civilizations," said the scientist quietly. "Human and something else. Something older." The engineer ran his fingers over a cracked console. Whoever built this wanted it to last. They found an archive chamber behind a sealed door. The pilot managed to power it up. The screens came alive, showing grainy images, people working beside tall, slender aliens with pale skin and luminous eyes. Both species building something together, a world maybe, or a bridge between their technologies. The comm officer's voice was soft. "This must have been one of the first contact colonies. Not lost, forgotten?" The captain watched the footage. Then what happened to them? The recordings flickered and faded to static. Night came, if it could be called night under a dying sun. The crew set up lights around the central hall and took turns resting. The air was still. Dust floated like ash in the pale glow. The comm officer kept the signal running on a loop, listening to it between quiet breaths. Sometimes it repeated the same phrase. Sometimes there were other words buried deep in the background, too faint to understand. The scientist worked on decoding them. "There's more here," he said, his voice calm but certain. "This isn't just a message. It's layered, like a conversation that never ended." "Between who?" the engineer asked. "Maybe between us and them," he replied. As the night wore on, strange things began to happen. The lights flickered, but not from power failure. The old machine seemed to hum softly, responding to something unseen. When the captain walked past the console, it pulsed brighter. Following his movement like a heartbeat, the scientist whispered, "It knows we're human." The captain placed a hand on the console's surface. It felt warm, alive. "Then let's listen." The decoding took hours. Layer by layer, the static cleared until the hidden message began to form. The voice became stronger, still human, but different now. Not a plea, not a cry for help. It sounded like someone speaking across time itself. "We built this together. We learned from them. We grew beyond what we were. If you are hearing this, you are not alone. We are still here." The room fell silent. The comm officer blinked away tears. "It's not a distress signal," she said softly. "It's a reminder." The captain nodded slowly. "A reminder of what we became." Outside, the wind rose again, whispering across the ruins like a breath from the past. The next morning, they explored deeper underground. They found an ancient chamber filled with transparent pillars, glowing faintly with soft blue light. Inside each one, fragments of light moved slowly, like thoughts frozen in motion. "It's a memory vault," the scientist said in awe. "They stored consciousness, data, maybe even parts of themselves." The captain looked around. "Human minds?" "Partly and partly not. A blend of human and alien. Like the ruins." The engineer stood beside one of the pillars. "They didn't vanish. They became something new." The comm officer touched her headset. "Captain?" "The signal's changing." They all froze. The speakers came alive again, filling the chamber with a sound like wind through glass. "We are still here." Then, after a pause, new words appeared on the display. Letters forming slowly, one by one. "They are coming back." The crew stared at the message. No one spoke. There was no fear in the room, only quiet wonder. The scientist smiled faintly. "Maybe they're descendants. Or ours." The captain nodded, his eyes on the glowing pillars. "Maybe both." Outside, the sky brightened as the dying sun flared, a brief, golden light spilling over the ruins, turning the metal walls warm again for the first time in centuries. The pilot whispered, "Do you think they'll find us?" The captain smiled. "I think they already have." They left the planet the next day, the solace lifting through thin air and drifting back toward the stars. The ruins grew small below them until they vanished into the gray dust. On the bridge, the crew sat in silence, watching the sun fade behind them. The signal still played softly in the background, a steady pulse across the void. Not a warning, not a threat, but a promise. "We are still here. They are coming back." The captain leaned back, eyes on the distant stars. "Maybe we were never alone," he said quietly. And somewhere far beyond the edges of known space, a faint light blinked in answer, as if something ancient had finally woken.